Så er det igen blevet tid til at byde velkommen til Papstinenser, din podcast om brætspil. Din studievært er Christian Bak-Petersen.
Hjertelig velkommen til Papstinenser, episode 72 af Danmarks nok smukkeste podcast, dedikeret udelukkende til brætspil og moderne kortspil. Bag podcasten her står Papskubber, den danske side på nettet om brætspil, fyldt med nyheder, anmeldelser, regelhjælp, artikler og anbefalinger til, hvad jeres næste brætspil kan være. Mit navn er Christian Bak-Petersen, og i dag der skal jeg bare lige give bolden op til vores utrolig hårdt arbejdende producer, Bo. For da sommeren var på sit højeste, havde han nemlig inviteret et par virkelig dygtige brætspilsillustratorer hjem i haven, og Papstinenser kan derfor i dag præsentere et interview med schweiziske Natascha Röösli og norske Henning Ludvigsen. Natascha har leveret artwork til Call of Cthulhu The Card Game og Games of Thrones The Card Game, begge to fra Fantasy Flight Games, og Henning har Netrunner, Arkham Horrors, Blood Rage, Cosmic Encounters, Descent og meget, meget mere på sit virkelig imponerende illustrations-CV. Så god fornøjelse med interviewet, hvor der både bliver rundet bræt, kort og forsideillustrationer, arbejdsgang og kunstnerisk frihed, når der skal tegnes til spil, drømmen om en god Lovecraft-film, og der bliver diskuteret, hvad forskel egentlig er på at illustrere en generisk huletrold og ikoniske karakterer som Han Solo.
Let's just be formal and start by introducing you guys. I'm sitting here. It's a beautiful Danish summer day, and I have famous visitors from the industry. Natascha, how do you pronounce your last name?
Röösli.
Röösli.
Röösli, yeah.
Okay. It sounds more Norwegian than Swedish, really. Or?
It's super Swiss, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it has those weird things like the. Actually, you have that in Denmark. No, you have that in Denmark too.
The sound.
The yeah, and I have two of them in the name, which makes it really difficult to
makes
travel.
It extra Viking-like.
Yeah. It's very Swiss.
And Henning Ludvigsen, you are vacationing in Denmark? Yes.
Yeah, Henning really wanted to visit Copenhagen, so
you started looking at trips for like Malaysia and stuff.
I wanted to go far away.
So let's go to Copenhagen.
But let's rewind one day, because yesterday afternoon I saw a Facebook post from Natascha who wrote, "Oh my God, we're in Bauer Cigar." Could you take our listeners back, Natascha, and tell us what was your experience in there? What did you see?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I didn't know about it, so I was just Googling for board game store in Copenhagen, obviously, because we're both really big board game fans. And I found, like, Barrow Cigars, like, okay, this is the biggest one, like, number one in Copenhagen. So we went there, and we went into one of the other ones first. So we went into the one that had all those manga comics, and so we're like, okay, this is very cool, but there's no board games here. I was like, okay, there's another store, so let's go upstairs. And like, oh no, there's more mangas here, which is super awesome, but again, no board games. Until we went around the corner, and then there was like more Faro Cigar posts, like signs, like everywhere. Like there's tons of those. And then we actually found the board game like building or that specific.
It's like a
store.
geeky suburb.
It was,
buildings.
and just getting in there was just like heaven. It was like a candy store. You had like literally walls of board games up to the ceiling, and you come in there, and the first thing you see is like color-coded D&D dice, like millions. So like it was like millions. It's just I was like, I'm never gonna leave here. I'm just gonna live here. I don't want to leave that store ever again.
Really cool people working there, helping us with questions.
Yeah, they're very helpful. But how does that compare to what board game stores would you go into, or are you at a level right now where people just send you stuff, or
not at all? No.
You're lucky if you get a copy of the stuff you've been doing yourself.
Not like as a board game artist, people even forget to credit you.
Ah, right, okay.
It's like Fantasy Flight Games. They're really good. They send us copies of stuff we worked on. They're really good. They have that in their routines.
Copies, yeah.
Others, you have to. Some you can ask, and they might. Some just forget. It's all over the place.
Okay.
So we have to buy most ourselves, I guess.
Yeah.
But if the two of you were to buy a new board game, where would you go in Norway to do that?
Physically, it's
Outland.
Outland, yeah.
Yeah.
They
It's
have
like the
shops all over, basically.
But it sounds like you would do it online.
No, it's actually physical stores.
Okay.
They have online stores as well, of course.
GameZone.no is very good though as well. Like if you want to order online, if I remember correctly.
There are several options. I just like the physical stores, and Outland they're really good.
But they have like it's a geek store. They have like everything together. They have books and art books and pops and
everything for that segment
everything.
of customer.
So they don't have like one store just full of board games only.
Actually, they did last year. They made a section that on their main site that says go to this address for more board games, and they have a lot of board games there.
Started that now.
You guys still beat them though.
Okay. I don't think it was a competition. It's a very social.
It is.
Board games.
Trust me, it is.
So how is board gaming in Norway? You live in somewhat out of Oslo, you told me.
Yeah, it's a small town called Holmestrand. It's about an hour south of Oslo, which is it's my hometown. But it's still kind of close by cities. So I feel that it's central. We also got the world's most expensive train station now, so we can easily get to places. But the board game scene is I think we have. It's quite active, but we don't have the cool. I think there would be a market for some cool venues like the ones you have here in Copenhagen, like the Bastard Bar, for instance, like a place you can
Bastard Cafe,
Bastard Cafe, which was really cool.
Yeah, it's always fun to hear like outsiders who experience it for the first time.
But sometimes we have events, but no real locations that do this like exclusively.
No, I mean we have that. What was it called? That the board game weekend in Oslo.
The gamers get together. Sometime.
Yeah, what was it called again?
The gamers get together.
Archon? No,
Archon.
Archon,
Yeah, that's once or twice a year.
So they do that where they get lots of gamers together in this old. It was an old school in Oslo, I think, on the hill, and then you have like different rooms where you can.
It's kind of it looks like a cool location.
It is a cool location.
It looks like a cool location.
We just buy quickly.
Yeah, but it felt like there weren't like that many different games being played. It was, I think, mostly a specific type of game. So it wasn't like Bastard Cafe, for example, where you have walls of games that you can just choose from and then play, like Betrayal or Arkham Horrors, Mansions of Madness.
I think they have a preset schedule that you can sign up for games. Yeah, and they've been doing this for a long time, and it's growing bigger and bigger from what I understand. But we're still lacking. We're lacking more options because we have the geeks there. We just need the places to go.
Also, there's a group as well that like
there are local
games,
board
right?
game groups.
Local board game groups, yeah.
But they're like just a few people.
I mean, it's also a little bit of a problem with Norway because Norway is so long and
distributed.
Big.
Yeah,
it's kind of like I think it's an issue with lots of hubs. Not even like also Game Developer Hub, for example, and Board Game Hub. So it's really hard to actually collect people in one spot. So I think that's one of the problems that Norway has. Geography, yeah.
But Norway is lucky to have the two of you because you have contributed so much to all the games that privileged countries like Denmark then get to enjoy. Could you try and tell us what it is that you have done? You're illustrators and have worked with, I can't even start to come up with the brands or the companies you've worked for.
Me neither.
The list is too long.
Mine is very short though, so I didn't really do that much.
You met each other sort of through or while working for Fantasy Flight, and you've done card games illustrations and cover illustrations for games and expansions and standalones. Henning, I know you have been doing a lot of tile and floor work, which I think is a discipline that should be credited and honored much more that I'm guessing it is.
It's a niche that found me, I guess.
Yeah. But to board game, it's so essential that we're looking down like into the old mansion or into the sewers beneath the dungeon or Well, not actually beneath the dungeon. The dungeon
I've always
is beneath the
been
dungeon.
focused on, always been interested in creating believable environments. So, creating, same with computer games. If I make locations, I always want to have those little details and make it look believable. And the same thing with board games. I always go out of my way to try to add as much as possible. But it's always this matter of time, and you have to spend this much time on it. You're always the last end of the production line. Like, we need this done in 2 weeks.
Okay. One of my questions to you was actually, is there ever a scenario where you get to play the game before actually creating the visuals for it?
I never know anything about the game until something recently. I can't say what it is. But, it's the awesome guys at Simon, where they just took their time on Skype and just played the prototype through with me, like looking, and explained everything to me, and that was really cool.
So 99 out of 100 times, it's really...
I have no idea.
No idea. It's just like a commission for some work that some place have to go here, or this thing is a square, and you don't know.
That's why I always need as much reference, like explanations and reference material as possible, which also varies a lot from client to client. But you have the bigger ones, like I can say Fantasy Flight Games. They're also very good at giving real proper information. They might give me like a single, super simple line art thing, and then a small description for each asset, what's needed. And then I have to go through it and try to make it believable. And especially if you work with IPs like Star Wars, you also can lean on the movies, and you can
or Big Trouble.
Oh, Big Trouble in Little China.
The game is out now, so I guess you can talk about that quite freely. What have you done for Big Trouble Little China, the board game? I don't know if that's the entire title, but
I think that's what it's called. Big Trouble in Little China, the board game. That's the full title.
So you had to watch the VHS 10 times, unfortunately.
We already had that anyway. we know that movie inside out.
I did the board. It's a huge 2-sided board. That's the biggest board I've ever done, I think, till this day. Which was a lot of fun. And there, my focus on details, I can go crazy, because I could you have all the different locations from the movie, and I could had to pause it. I've watched the movie a million times while working, because I had to pause it and look at details. You might have a special chair with a piece of cloth hanging over the chair, and it's also in the game, because I tried to really nail all those little details. Is that a
top-down illustration of locations from the movie, or?
Yeah, on one side is basically as Chinatown or San Francisco, showing all the different locations from the movie. And when you flip it over, it's kind of the end scene where you have the office of Lopan, and the sewers, and the big arcade thing at the end with all the neon lights and the big skull and with the escalator.
Right.
It has all those little things. And of course, you all sometimes need to work around the rules to make the detail work with the gameplay. But I always try to make it as closely as possible to the original.
How much freedom, artistic freedom, is there in a piece like that for you? Are there a layout that you have to follow, or is it simply probably isn't the right term for it, but is it, Henning, we need you to create a piece for us that have these 5 locations, but whether one is up or the next is down, or that's completely up to you. How does a briefing like that work?
Yeah, I usually prefer it when the layout is set, so I just have to basically fill in the art.
Yeah.
For the Big Trouble game, it was a lot of freedom, but the map was nicely detailed out. You knew where the locations were, where each door was supposed to be, and if there are any specific limitations or gameplay elements, then it was all there. So it was super simple.
So they had a very good prototype that they could show you. Okay.
Very good. And I don't like having freedom when it comes to gameplay related things, because if I do something that might break the gameplay, I don't want to be blamed.
You're a conscious board gamer yourself, so you know how that impact can come out. Yeah,
I don't want to take the blame for the gameplay or the design. Blame me for the art, not the gameplay.
Sure. Yeah. Well, no, you won't get blamed for the art. That's for sure. And Natascha, your work has been more character-based, or I don't know if I would say character-driven, but your work have been more towards card illustrations. Have you ever done like a map or cartography or any sort of?
No, not at all. Because I'm not good at it. Like, it's the perspective thing as well. Like, as Henning said, most boards are top down, and you really have to get that perspective there, and like, where do those tiles connect, and it still has to work. And that's just not me. I'm more of a character artist, and I like painting characters.
Yeah.
That's more me. So I've never done a board, and I also don't think I would be good at it at all. So I'm always fascinated how Henning, and also how efficient he works with that, and the whole, because you have to understand 3D as well to make sure the perspective works on a whole board, and it doesn't look flat. So I am incredibly fascinated by how he does that. But that's, I could never do that.
but you have done, on one of my shelves, I have the old art book from H.P. Lovecraft's Fantasy Flight artwork from. Is it a hard thing to create something that is out of this world, or would you prefer like something that is more humanoid? I don't know if that's the correct term.
Okay,
for it,
yeah, I see what you mean. No, I love doing those things.
Okay.
I mean, because when I started, and I think that's how Fantasy Flight Games contacted me as well, or why they contacted me, is because I started with fantasy art.
Yeah.
So I was never really interested in just like showing normal things or painting normal things, because I think that's the whole fascination for me, to be able to create something that's not normal, or like that's out of this world. I mean, that could be just normal fantasy in elves, or like role-playing character or something like that. And then the fascinating thing with Lovecraft, of course, is that you can bring out that darker side as well. And having an excuse to bring out the darker side without people thinking, wow, she's a weirdo.
Yeah.
What the hell? She's painting skulls and stuff, So, but I'm also fascinated with that, because I have a few personal pieces as well that are kind of dark. I remember one of the first pieces that wasn't just high fantasy was it's called the Soul Collector, I think, which was kind of supposed to be the spirit that collects souls, and there was a skull in the painting and the raven on her shoulder, and back like then it was still a little bit, you would maybe be looked at as a bit of a weirdo if you paint things like that. And I'm not like a dark person or anything like that. It's just I find it interesting to tell stories through a painting, and like painting for Fantasy Flight Games and for Call of Cthulhu in that Lovecraft universe, it's just really fun, because you can go to other places and paint things that otherwise would be looked at as a bit weird, maybe. And there's always a story behind it too. It's not just because I love skulls.
No, it's just it's not tentacles for the sake of tentacles.
It's just because there's like these interesting stories behind it too. This whole universe behind it that makes sense.
I do love tentacles.
We all love tentacles.
Who doesn't love tentacles?
You tell yourself stories while painting them? Just for the sake of our listeners, how long time are you working on a card game illustration? Say a detective with fangs in his hand,
the thing, it's different. I mean, for my personal pieces, I do have a story in the back of my head. So I do kind of have this backstory for that character, or the idea why that character is in this setting, or why are those special aspects or these special things in that painting. So that makes sense to me. And then, of course, if you do work for, like, say, Fantasy Flight Games or Simon, or for any other, or Wizards for Magic or so, you get, of course, a story. Or they tell you, like, okay, this is... or, for example, let's take Lovecraft or Call of Cthulhu. They tell you, of course, what the card is supposed to do, what is supposed to be in the card.
What it's supposed to do in a game,
like the game mechanic, like the card. Okay, this is an investigator, or this card is, or for Game of Thrones, for example, this is a specific effect card, or things like that. So you get like that background, and then of course for Game of Thrones, it's also the characters. Or I didn't actually know Game of Thrones before this. Before I got before I got to do some of those pieces, and that's when I started reading the books actually, because I wanted to know and read up on the characters. And then
are there
then
any,
of course
any
you know
of these briefings that you remember? I mean, how is a effect card described?
No, I actually don't remember because it's a while back.
Yeah, sure.
Was there
is it like a 2-line thing, or this is?
It's not that much.
Okay.
It's basically okay. This is I there was like the investigator card, but it's just kind of like, okay, this is a character card or this is an effect card, and they tell you what effect the card has.
Sure.
But I don't necessarily remember the details for that specific card. I'm not. Do you remember a specific card?
No, it used to be just really short. It
yeah,
could
it's
be
like 1-2 sentences.
Yeah, a few sentences. Yeah. Really
Yeah.
short.
Investigator.
No, it's basically just like I remember that one card is like, okay, there's supposed to be a hand with teeth, a hand with like a mouth in it, and it's supposed to look very menacing.
Right.
Just things like that, or
a little bit of the setting, or okay.
And then sometimes they also tell you this card does this and that, so you have a bit of background and you and you go from there.
Kind of backwards ones where I just made a personal piece, like Lovecraft's themed piece, and they would buy it and use it for like Arkham Horror, for instance, and just adapt to the drawing, which would be cool.
Yeah.
One I had to actually made a self-portrait of me with a big tentacle on my shoulder. And they used that. And I also had to make a new version where the tentacle was replaced with a rope. And that's one of the investigators in
Arkham Horror.
The Arkham Horror expansion.
Tell us that story, Henning, because that actually in turn turns out to make little plastic figures of you, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I made the board for some expansions for Arkham Horror, and I was also commissioned to do some of the investigators. And the art director at the moment from Fancy Flight Games, she was really cool. She doesn't work there anymore, unfortunately. So she asked me to actually paint Natascha as an investigator and also herself. And they used the piece I made of myself as the third one. And they also made miniatures of us, which is really cool. And now in the new version of the games, someone else painted us again.
That is really weird. Yeah. Oh, even weirder is the fact that I actually found someone who cosplayed my character.
Oh,
that is so cool, though.
Well,
I have that somewhere. I actually took a picture and then like had it side by side, like the illustration that Henning made of me from my character, and then her
playing
as
that
cosplay
character.
Playing that character, and it looked so cool. I mean, she looked much better though. It was like she looked amazing. But that was like, okay. That was that moment, like, okay, someone cosplayed as me, kind of. That's just like a really cool moment.
Right. I ordered the entire pre-painted first season of the Arkham Horror set. So right now I'm thinking about if I have some weird, bad painted Chinese plastic miniature of the two of you lying in my little room with board games. I have to go check that out.
Could be.
We still haven't seen them in person. We just see them online.
Yeah. What my character is called Ursula Downs, I think. Ursula Downs, and yours is.
I've seen two versions of me. One is called Henning Ludvigsen.
I didn't know that. I didn't even know that.
But I think that was a tentacle guy. The rope guy is called something else. I don't remember.
So you could be in there twice.
I think he was a bootlegger.
Yeah, definitely bootlegger.
Yeah, that's you. You in a Lovecraftian universe would definitely be a bootlegger. But Henning, you're still doing a lot of artwork for board game companies or for board games in general.
It started out as a side thing. I used to live in Greece back in the days, working with computer games, and then you had a lot of spare time, so I would do these things during evenings and weekends. But lately, it's a lot of requests. I could do it full time. I've done it full time now for like 9 months.
Okay.
Which I could continue with, but I'm going partially back to computer games. But I still work a few days a week full with just board game stuff. And I started back in 2000. How long have we been together now?
13 years.
Yeah, about 13, 14 years, I guess. Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah, and different. Well, I started out working for Fancy Flight Games almost exclusively, and after a few bunch of games for those guys, I got more and more requests from other companies. And nowadays I still work for Fantasy Flight Games a little bit. I work a lot for Simon, a bit for Hasbro, Modifius in England, Grimlord Games, and a few smaller like new starters, like people with successful Kickstarters and stuff that sounds interesting, like Everything Epic is the Big Trouble in Little China guys. They also do the Rambo game, which I'm doing now. Yeah. I just love those IPs. Being able to work on my favorite IPs from when I was a kid, like Star Wars, Big Trouble in Little China, Rambo. It's great stuff. Still want to work for something Firefly related.
Oh,
though.
yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you have a favorite IP? I mean, guys like you, I'm guessing that you could always just take the time and paint whatever you choose. I mean, if you want to spend a Saturday evening painting Firefly scenes, nobody is stopping you from doing that. But is there a crossover thing where you're being hired to do it in an official way, or just doing something as a personal piece?
Well, I don't have time for personal pieces, so anything I do is always commissioned and official. Yeah. I wish I had time though; it would be cool.
Back in the days when I did character illustrations for Game of Thrones for Fantasy Flight Games, the coolest thing back then for me was that actually Fantasy Flight Games told me that, well, these pieces, because I did some really high profile character, they are fine at fans. Like, this is so wrong. That doesn't look like Sansa at all. And there's just in the back of your head, you were like, you're wrong. George R. R. Martin himself approved this. So it's like, he approved. But anyway, I mean, it's really fun to work with an IP like that. But you also know there's like a super loyal community behind this, and people that know, the IP, and they know the characters, and they know the world and universe, and you have to be true to that, and you have to really respect that as well, which makes it in one way super awesome, but also like a little bit scary, and you have a lot of responsibility in that regard as well.
I remember, Henning, one of your drawings of Han Solo or Harrison Ford, it turns out, shooting in a corridor with Chewie behind him. Try and expand on what is the difference between drawing a cave troll that nobody really knows what. I mean, anything you do would be, oh yeah, right. So that's how the cave troll looks, and then trying to, as Natascha says, nail a character that, let's just say, in our part of the world or in the geekies community, everybody knows what Harrison Ford looks like in a stormtrooper uniform.
It's a challenge. It's also very different from game to game. Like some of the Game of Thrones. I think now the new Game of Thrones illustrations, you're not allowed to make them look like the actors from the movie.
Yeah.
Then you have to officially
put your own spin to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same. I would do some work on Lord of the Rings, the card game, where I have to paint Gandalf, but not look like the actor Gandalf.
Yeah, not like Ian McKellar. Yeah.
It's tricky because to me that's him, the actor.
Exactly. That's why he was chosen for that role.
Yeah, but for Han Solo, it has to look like, the actor.
Ford.
So, for that specific illustration, I just collect the different reference pictures online and try to find like a in between thing. I don't think it looked that much like him.
I think you did an excellent job.
But I was actually I did a piece with Leia. With Carrie Fisher just before she died, which was unfortunate. But then I felt like I hit it a little bit closer. But it's always tricky when you can't just take a photo and copy it directly. You need to make it look like the actor based on several references. But like a character, like a cave troll or monsters, you just have to know your geeky side and your mythologies and try to find something that you think the geek world is going to like. And
then I'm guessing there's a lot of anatomy, like even painting a monster that, of course, doesn't exist in the real world. You still have to get the weight, the sluggish movements, or especially
for like humanoid creatures, they still use the anatomy, how muscles work. You still base it on reality.
Well, the thing is, even if you like say, invent a new creature, it's still rooted in things you know. Like you can't paint something you've not seen in one way or another. Even if it looks completely out there, and if you look at it, you think, hey, I've never seen this creature before. How did you come up with that? It's always still things that you know or you might have seen in
Drawing
one form or another.
Something from the real world,
because you have to draw from a place that you know how it works.
Yeah, sure.
Even if you make the most out there, insane.
And is that because otherwise it would look off? Or
people wouldn't understand it, and it wouldn't work like logically either. So, like even for concept artists, that like for movies like The Fifth Element or Valerian, even those are like so many alien creatures that like so amazing. But even concept artists for that, they come from a place of actual biology and creatures that we know that exist like on Earth, and then just mold it into something else that still works and still makes sense and can still be understood by everyone else.
It doesn't take much until things seems off.
No.
It's like, even actually the weird thing is, the more anatomically correct something is, the more someone thinks it's.
It's like the uncanny valley with computer games. If a character looks really close to humans, but it has this tiny little thing, it just gets freaking freaky.
Yeah, I also think that we have a like distorted like eye for art and illustrations, because it can be like very super exposed and super stylized, but we're used to seeing that. So if you paint a character or a person that is completely normal, that might have not longer legs, or their upper body is a bit longer than, or something is off, then people feel that, okay, this is wrong, while in reality it's actually more naturalistic than normal illustrations.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird in that regard. Yeah.
I think we have to talk more about tentacles.
Couldn't agree more.
I like where this interview is headed. You mentioned movies and reference. What are the best tentacles we have ever seen in a movie?
Tentacles? I would just, for some reason, I was just thinking of The Thing. That's not necessarily tentacles, though. Well, it is kind of tentacly. There's some tentacles in there. The Thing.
I do like the tentacles in Mist. Movie.
Oh, that is true. Yeah. What else? Dagon has some. No, Dagon doesn't have tentacles. Actually.
There's a separation between just slimy and tentacles. So
I'm thinking of really nice looking tentacles now. Like actually, the old Nemo movie, like the one from the 60s or something, like 1,000 Miles on the.
Actual octopus.
Tentacle. Yeah, that's an actual tentacle thing that I remember from when I was a kid. That stuck with me. But Lovecraftian, actually, that's one of the things that I feel we still need a really, really good Lovecraft movie.
Yeah. You can say a lot about the alien Prometheus thing, but in the end, there's a tentacle attack scene.
That's excellent. Yeah,
it is excellent. And when I saw that movie, I couldn't help myself thinking, so yes, now the technology is finally there for us to get a proper
Lovecraft movie. Yeah.
You remember because it's both like it's heavy, it's moving very rapidly, and it's slimy. I know.
Yeah, it's pulling the xenomorph through the door, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Didn't the Alien, like the underwater Alien 4, was that Alien 4? The underwater thing, they were also very tentacly. They were like swimming really fast.
Oh, that's just their tail.
Was it a tail? Okay.
Yeah, they have like different hybrid creations in that universe. Have any of you worked on an alien IP?
No. Not officially.
Not officially.
No, that would be awesome. Yeah, it's like, so call us. Yeah, that'd be awesome. No, we haven't. I'm still thinking about alien stuff. Also, Lovecraft movies in general. Like.
Yeah,
What is your favorite Lovecraft movie? Lovecraft inspired.
I'm getting it would be Dagon because it's
Dagon? Yeah.
I think the most unexpected. I mean, seeing it, I remember I didn't sort of know where it was going. So that shipwreck that just keeps getting better and better and better, and you're going, okay, so these guys are clearly it's a Spanish movie, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Have you any? I don't even know how many Lovecraftian movies are there.
I mean, I feel The Thing is very Lovecraftian too, though. I mean, obviously, it's not like pure Lovecraft, but it's one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and I feel it's still very cool for what it does.
It's definitely inspired by Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
most
you
horror
have
stuff is.
At the Mountains of Madness, of course, with what's the actor's where he plays the writer. That's actually a proper Lovecraft story, like from the short story, which is not a bad movie either. Like I kind of like that. It was
Like Dagon.
The Mist.
It was. I didn't know about it until we just saw it, and then I was really surprised how good it was. It was cool.
Because it's from the mid-90s or something.
I think it's even old. Yeah, it's really kind of old.
I thought it was newer. But
No. Dagon is quite old.
Okay.
20 years, something.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. Actually, one of the recent movies that reminded me of Lovecraft, but I also didn't know the story, is, or the book, is Annihilation. That's a Netflix original, I think, that recently came out. It was about this group of women.
Natalie Portman thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it reminded me of The Color of Space. I think that was a short story called by Lovecraft.
Oh, really?
I think so. It reminded me of, and it was just, it felt very Lovecraft for some reason.
There's Lovecraft like going internally insane and meddling with your own mind, and then there's the
it's the horror. It's a psychological horror, but well, the space horror, of course.
We're still waiting for the perfect movie, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The Mist wasn't really. The Mist was actually very good. I thought.
I love The Mist.
Yeah, that was actually a good
movie.
The movie was actually quite.
Have you played The Mountain of Madness, the board game?
A little bit.
Mountains of Madness?
You said Mansions?
Of Madness.
No, Mountain of Madness.
Oh, sorry, no.
I didn't know there was one, actually.
Oh, yeah. It came out last year and was a Rob Davio design, I think, the Pandemic Legacy guy. So I of course, ripped it from the shelf immediately. But it is a weird sort of party gimmicky game where you're not allowed... Well, your madnesses comes out in the game through things you either have to do or can't do, or... So you're chipping in resources to overcome different things in the game, and you might get like an illness or a insanity that all of a sudden tells you that you can't say even numbers anymore. And we're all trying to chip in and say, well, this task will demand like 6 food and 11 tools for some of us. So Natascha, how many tools do you have? And you're not allowed to say even numbers, and it just continues, sort of, So people,
it's 10 plus.
Yeah, or you can't believe whatever the person to your left is saying. So whatever Henning would be saying, I would just be, yeah, right, you're lying, and it. So the idea is sort of good, but it for the audience, it's just not a. It's not a horror game. No, it could have been anything. I mean, it could have been like your night out with the circus or something else. But it is you're trying to climb up this mountain pyramid thing and get to your little airplane and fly out of Antarctica.
Could have been cool.
I feel that the challenges for Lovecraft-inspired games is like, people go insane, and how do you translate that into something that still works? Saying that, I still feel that, like, now we're going computer games though, that Darkest Dungeon was such an amazing... I'm not sure, have you played Darkest Dungeon, the actual video game, like, for PC? It's out on Switch as well. That they have done such an amazing job, like, negative perks for characters, and you get like super negative things all the time, so it's really difficult to go through the game with different characters, so you have to just forget about the specific character and then try to get a new one. But I feel that is one of the closest adaptation that I can imagine of Lovecraft insanity system, and that works really well, even though it is frustrating and it's really difficult too.
It goes directly on the to-do list. Touching on that, where do you guys get your inspiration? Movies I can hear, but are there any specific artists that you follow, look up everything? Are you curious about how other people tackle other board games, or is that just part of your geeky life?
I don't really follow anything specific. I do, keep my eye on different art communities and just enjoy pieces of art. But and I know a lot of really awesome artists that we sometimes talk to. The inspiration is usually just, movies, and nothing more interesting really.
For me, actually, I got into digital illustration and fantasy because of magic, and then when you're part of the community, you do try to understand how other artists work, and I think I learned a lot from just studying other artists' paintings, like how do they treat color? Why does this work, even though it's not a color that would actually, it's not what you see in nature anyway, the colors, pink and green to make skin colors, and it still works. How does that even work? And I'm usually a lot of inspiration from just studying other artists' work that I really look up to. But in terms of stories, I think it's just like personal stories that from my personal pieces I like to paint or used to paint, or then just fan art, like from games or from books and like movies. Yeah. I love geek culture.
One thing is, of course, characters. Then you have tons of inspiration. But when it comes to board art, it's kind of limited. I don't really know any other board artists. So that's why, the niche found me, I mentioned earlier. But I do have... I have been watching some cartography things, like old school map illustrations, sometimes for inspiration, and sometimes like 8-bit pixelated orthographic, just like Japanese-looking computer games. Sometimes if you need some orthographic-looking buildings, just as an inspiration for angles or how to sort the amount of details for locations. Yeah. As some kind of inspiration source, at least.
Well, inspiration can come from a lot of things. Press any key to continue. Yeah, that's probably it. We're still recording, apparently. Note to self. Edit here. No, inspiration can come from anywhere, and it's. Don't you? I mean, you definitely both have a style, an artistic sort of quality to what you do. Do you feel that people come to you asking for your work because they like your stability in delivering, or is it that brush stroke, that level of finish is?
For my part, the new clients doesn't know how reliable I am, okay. but most I hear very often like, we have a board game project and we need some art for it, and can you make it just like Imperial Assault? Yeah. So they might have seen other things, so it kind of typecast, I guess. So I've done a lot of stuff which is kind of similar, but you have to try to find a little unique edge to it. But it's very often you get new projects because of other previous projects.
And Imperial Assault have been quite a big job or commission from you, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You've worked on every, like the core game and the expansions.
Yeah, core game, expansions, some playmats, I believe. Yeah, okay. As well.
Do you play it yourself?
No. Sadly, no.
Confession.
No friends. No friends.
No friends to play with.
No friends that like Star Wars.
No, I even have it like still wrapped in plastic in our basement. The miniature looks cool, at least.
We're trying though. We're trying. It's most games. It's fun to play with 3 or more people, and since we live a little bit on the countryside, it's kind of difficult to find.
Technically, it's a city.
People. It's technically a city, but it's very rural.
But do you get tired of? I mean, if you were to pick up playing Imperial Assault, would it irritate you, or would you be reminded of the hours spent creating trash machines and corridors and all that, or is that so many years now that it doesn't matter? Now it's just a movement for and a door.
No, I love working on those type of games, and and
but coming back and playing them, I mean,
that would be fun. We played a few of our games, and you don't think about it when you're playing at all.
Okay,
so that's it's just bored while playing, I guess. But we played mostly Cave Troll. Actually, I think is the game I played the most.
Which was your first?
My very first board, yeah.
Your very first board.
So it has a bit of.
It's mostly because it's super easy to play and get into. You don't have like a lot of setup time. We did play not Mansions of Madness. Arkham Horror? No.
Yeah, we played Arkham Horror a few times.
Which is so difficult though.
It is, yeah.
Like going up against the elders as like normal investigators. I don't think we've won. I think we played it like 3 or 4 times and we never won.
We won.
Did we?
Yeah.
Once?
I don't remember which. We did. Must be.
Pushover elder. Yeah. Those are fun though.
You'll be happy to know that I have painted all my minis for Imperial Assault, of course. But to honor your work, Henning, I have cut off the bases of all the miniatures and replaced them with clear plastic, so you can see the corridors and the tiles.
That is so nice.
Through.
That's really nice.
So they look like they are only like placing their footsteps on the board now.
I love to see them.
Yeah, we should definitely go.
That is so considerate as well. That's really nice. I'd actually never thought about that either. It's like that.
More often you have a room filled with, you have a bad guy, you have
and you don't see the board.
Like 3 or 4 people, and all of a sudden the floor is.
Yeah, it's the same with Cave Troll, where you have like 7, 9 little creatures in the same room.
Clear acrylic bases, they cost next to nothing, and super glue, and
that's so smart.
That's a great tip for everyone.
Yeah, it's a good tip for everyone.
Tips. Natascha and Henning, thank you so much for taking your time and telling us a bit about how the illustration side of board games work. And we hope to see so much more from you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. It's really nice.
Tusind tak til Natascha og Henning. Find link til de tos arbejde på www.papskubber.dk/podcast, hvor du også kan se eksempler på deres imponerende og virkelig flotte arbejde. Det var alt for denne gang. Vi er tilbage om 14 dage, hvor jeg igen har Morten og Peter tilbage. Papstinenser er produceret af Christian Beckmann og Bo Jørgensen, der også var manden med mikrofonen i dagens episode. Jeg hedder Christian Bak Petersen, og på vegne af Papstinenser siger jeg tak for denne gang.